What's up, guys? So today we're going to be looking at harp glisses inside the context of large orchestral scores. The references I'm going to be using here are, let's see, my Third Symphony and my Second Symphony. So the references are Andrew Feazell, composer, Symphonies 2 and 3. And for our first example, we're going to be looking at the score that starts with measure 132 inside the third movement of my Third Symphony. And we're going to be looking at structured glisses, not ad-lib glisses. Basically, that means that the harp has a definitive starting note and a definitive ending note, and it's in structured time. It's not like they're kind of ad-libbing the thing. So that's what we're looking at. We're going to look at how to construct these. And for our first example, I picked this one because it kind of has the perfect starting note and perfect ending note inside the context of the score, and that means we're starting at a note that somehow correlates with something else happening in the score. So we're starting on a D flat here, and the correlating notes are the D flat in the cello. I don't know, there may be D flats up here as well. Yeah, maybe one here on the tuba, bass tuba, and tuba and bass trombone. And then the ending note again correlates with something in the score. This time it's going to be our violin melody. So we've got C's here, and we've got C's in the melody, and who knows, we maybe have some C's up here as well. Here, some C's in the flutes. And so that is kind of the perfect scenario where your harp starts on a note that correlates with something in the score and ends on a note that correlates with something in the score. It looks like here we have like a, what is this, C minor thing going on here. So we got C, we've got a G, got an E flat in the violas, E flat, and we got C's in the cello and bass. So yeah, our best note to stop on is a C. If we are somehow desperate and can't get to that C for whatever reason, I can't think of a reason, probably your second best note to use is going to be the G above the C, maybe a G below the C. Not as awesome as stopping on the C. And the third option is the E flat. Yes. Let's make an E flat right here. Third option is the E flat, but that one's not as good either, because what the listener is going to hear is they're going to hear an E flat, and then they're going to hear the note jump down to B flat, A flat, G, and then C, and it's going to kind of destroy this pattern where it's C, B flat, A flat, G, C, B flat. So this pattern we're trying to set up here is going to be kind of diminished by having the harp gliss all the way up to this note. The only reason you want to be glissing up to a different note than what the melody's really doing here on top is if maybe like your woodwinds had some type of G or something. Let's make G's for these guys. Yeah, there we go. So you'd be glissing up to maybe this G to reference something happening in the woodwind part, but I don't know. I think your best bet is going to be this C because it's referencing the actual melody, and you want the listener's attention to snap straight to this C and listen to the melody, basically. Let's erase all this good stuff. All right. So our next step in constructing our gliss, once we've got our beginning and ending notes figured out, is what to do with our other notes. Of course, we got our beginning note, but we have to figure out what to do with these other 6 notes here, or 5 notes if you've already determined what you want to do with your ending note. So the way we determine that is, first we look at what's happening in the harmony. Let's see, harmonic info. Is this turning out okay on screen, guys? So we're looking at the harmonic information that the harp is actually glissing over. What do we got here? We've got a C, C. We've got A flat. Got an F happening here. Sorry, it looks like an E. That's an F. And D flat here. And probably about the same thing is happening in the other instruments. So we've got kind of like a D flat major 7 type feel to the harmony here. That lets us use a D flat, lets us use an F, and A flat, and a C. Okay, so we got that figured out. And then next, we use whatever melodic info is happening in the context of the score. And we generally want to be using melodic information that happens kind of near our gliss, that's kind of to the left of our gliss, or information that's already happened, as opposed to what's going to happen here in the future. You don't really want to anticipate the next measure's harmonic language. You want to reference what's happened in the immediate past. So let's see what we have happening here. We got an A flat. Did we already put an A? Oh yeah, we already did an A flat. And then it looks like the melody is mostly respecting the key signature here for our other notes. So we're going to have an E flat here, going to have a G, and we're going to have a B flat. We got B flats here, don't we? Yeah, we got B flats happening here. So that basically tells us what to do as far as the notes in the gliss. So again, harmonic information, and then secondarily, melodic information that's happening in the immediate vicinity of the harp, but maybe right before what's happening. Generally, you don't want to anticipate, as I said. Okay, and then let's go to our second example. This one isn't as good because it has kind of an arbitrary starting note that doesn't really have anything to do with what's happening in the context of the score, but yeah, it still kind of works. We're still having our nice ending note set up where it hits other high notes in the score. We're just hitting that C again, like we did last time. But there's something different this time. Now we have harmonic information that's kind of spread out over the gliss, where we've got one set of information here and we've got a second set of information. So let's figure out how to adjudicate this. Again, we're going to want to use all the harmonic information from part 1 and part 2 in the gliss here, and hopefully nothing hopefully both sides of the harmonic language are okay for the entire gliss. So the harp or the gliss doesn't conflict is the word I'm looking for. Conflict with something happening on one side of the harmony here. So let's figure out what's happening here. In our trumpet, we have what? We have a G in the trumpet and an E flat, it looks like. Or maybe, nope. That's maybe a G flat. Sorry, guys. G flat in the trumpet and an E flat in the trumpet. Our second trumpet has an E flat and it has a C. We also have an A, F, and what do we have here? F. So in the trombones we have an A and an F. In the bass trombone or tuba we have an F. On this side of the harmonic language. And then on the other side, what do we have? We have a G flat, E flat, and an E flat here. There we go. So basically, these are the notes we're going to be wanting to use in our gliss. And let's see if that works out for us here. So we're starting on a C. Yeah, that works out for all this stuff. This kind of almost feels like a F dominant 7 type feel with a whatever, G flat on top of it in the melody. Is that what we got? G flats? Yeah, looks like a G flat in the melody here. So yeah, C works out. There's a C in this information over here. This kind of looks like a maybe a E flat minor with a 6 added to it. Just put 6 there. However you say that, I don't know. I don't remember all my harmonic theory, but that's kind of what it looks like to me. E flat minor with a C as your 6 there. So yeah, we've got an implied C in this harmony and a C over here, so we're going to be using a C. E flats on both sides. There's an E flat here, E flat on the other side, so our E flat works out. We got an F over here. We don't really have any F or anything over here, so our F works out. We got E flats on both sides of the harmonic language, so we've got, we got G flats on both sides of the harmonic language, so we can grab our E flat there. We have an A natural here, nothing over here, so our A natural works out for us. And then we've got a, looks like a B flat, and our B flat is kind of implied in our E minor here, and there's no B flats on this side, so B flat kind of works out. The D flat, where do we get that? That's kind of weird, right? The D flat looks like it's part of our harmonic, our melodic information. Oop. D flat, here we go. D flat is part of our harmonic, our melodic information leading up to the gliss. So we've got kind of like a string run here. String run kind of almost feels like a gliss for strings, I guess. So we're just continuing this information through our gliss. So we got a run, and then we got a gliss that kind of completes the set of notes going up to the sky here. So that's where our D flat comes into play. Now, if you do have conflicts between your harmonic language that the harp is glissing over, you can sometimes eliminate notes simply by how the harp pedals work. So let's see, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. This isn't how the harp pedals are set up, by the way. This is just a scale. And the harp can play like one note above this, one note below this scale, just one minor second up or one minor second down. So it can play C flat or it can play C sharp. Same goes for all these other strings of the harp. So say you have harmonic information where maybe the E only works on the first part of your harmonic language, but it doesn't work on your second part of your harmonic language. Well, you can always instruct the harpist to pedal a minor second up to make an F. Just this isn't correlated to this. I'm just saying in an abstract thought experiment that the E doesn't work for some reason. And then our gliss is going to be a C, a D, an F, a G, A, and a B. And then the B also has that ability to say we need it to be a C because Bs aren't working for some reason. It can be pedaled up to a C, and in that case we have a C, D, F, F, G, A, and C again. G, A, and C again. So we've eliminated some notes that may conflict with what's happening just to make our harp part more palatable to the listener. It doesn't have to be in the C scale, of course. There's plenty of options for different keys and whatnot. Okay, let's see what else we want to talk about. Let's see. Oh, okay. So next thing we should talk about is how many notes to use. Let's delete all our stuff here. So how many notes do we use? This thing's starting on a low D flat and going all the way up to a C above the clef here, above the treble clef. So like a high C, basically. So how many notes should we use for our gliss? That's based on the tempo of the piece. So at a fast tempo, you're going to be using less notes in your gliss. And you guessed it, slow tempo, you're going to be using more notes in your gliss. Sorry guys, our battery died here, so let's just go over what I just said. So to determine how many notes you're going to be using in your gliss, a piece that has a fast tempo basically uses less notes in the gliss, and a piece that has a slower tempo uses more notes in the gliss. So basically the gliss has a defined velocity, and that defined velocity is just based on what has come before us in the broader musical language. So we're just going to be looking at empirical information in just the broader musical catalog of orchestral scores and whatnot. So basically, in order to figure out how quick a gliss should be, we just have to look at other pieces, look at their scores and listen to the music and just kind of get a feel for how quick a gliss should be. And then once you got that feel, you kind of get an instinctive idea of how quick the notes should go by. And then once you do that, or once you have that, you can determine how many notes your gliss should consist of. A good way to do this is actually while you're at your piano and where you have like a targeted starting note and a targeted ending note, sit at your piano, listen to the music in your head at the tempo it's supposed to be at, and then just run your fingers over the piano keys kind of lightly, starting at your beginning note and your ending note. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can just start on the white keys. You don't have to try to zigzag back and forth to get the correct notes. Just start on the white keys and then run your hand up the keys, kind of with, the back of your finger just on your fingernail, just to make it a smooth glide, and kind of get a feel for how quick that gliss is going to be when you actually write it out and the harp player plays it. And that way you can determine, oh, it's way too fast. Like say it goes zoop like that. That's maybe too fast for the harp. You want something that's more like something like that, so that your tempo is bump, 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 boom, something like that. Or maybe your tempo is bump, 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 boom, something like that. So just scrape your finger over your keys, kind of figure out what feels good for you and for the harpist, for the listener and for the harpist. You are the primary listener before anybody else gets to hear what you're writing, I guess. So that is how we figure out how many notes to put in your gliss. Let's see what else we want to talk about here. Oh, okay. One more thing to think about on these glisses is if you do have a situation where you've got multiple pieces of harmonic information happening during the gliss, what you don't want to do, that looks like dant, but it's actually don't. What you don't want to do is tell the harpist to change pedals in the middle of the gliss. It's better to figure out a system where whatever notes they're going to be executing, they all work. So don't try to get them to change a B to a C inside the gliss for some reason. Say like the B only works here and you want it to go up to C here. Don't do that, because you're going to get weird buzzing and weird artifacts in the harp part if you ask them to switch their pedals as they're glissing. Okay, let's take a break, and then next up we'll talk about where to actually place the glisses, or the gliss effect, inside the context of what's happening with the rest of the orchestration. Okay guys, so let's start to look at what the harp glissandos can actually do in the broader context of the orchestral score. Now that we know the basic mechanics behind it, now we can start to apply it inside our music for different effects. And on this first example, we're actually using the harp in the middle of a section of music as opposed to the harp glissando emphasizing maybe a climax, conclusion, or the beginning of a new section of music, which we'll look at here in a sec, but this one is kind of in the middle of a section of music, and it looks like it's being used as a secondary idea against the primary idea. So in our brass section, we are at, let's say where we're at first. We are at measure 545 in Symphony Number 2, and I think this is the third movement towards the end of the entire symphony. And in the brass, we have this primary idea going on. It's kind of like a big, bold finish type idea towards the end of the piece. And it's kind of going bum, 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 bum. Kind of a little bit of back and forth there. And you can see the back and forth in the timpani part. Bum, 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 bam, 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 bam. Okay, you get the idea. So that's our primary idea, that thing going on there. And then our secondary idea is our harp gliss. And actually, if the gliss itself was the secondary idea, it probably wouldn't exist. It's actually emphasizing a woodwind run. And that's one of the things the harp can do, or typically does, is just emphasize woodwind and string runs. And in this case, we're doing a woodwind run. So let's look at the broader context of the music here. We've got bum, 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 that kind of feel. So we've got our flute here, starting on a C, ending on a C, inflecting on a C, I should say, and ending on a C. So C to C to C, C to shining C, basically. And our harp also does the same thing. We starting on a C, inflecting on a C, and ending on a C. And you can see the harp, in order to preserve the correct velocity of the gliss, has to gliss from this middle C all the way up to this higher C, basically 2 octaves, as opposed to what our woodwinds are doing is just going over 1 octave and then dropping 2 octaves. Here we're going up 2 octaves and we're dropping 1, 2, 3 octaves. We're going 3 octaves down. And again, that's just to preserve the velocity of the gliss. Sorry, I'm not writing octaves well, but you get the idea. So that's to preserve the velocity of the gliss, just to make it sound correct. Like if we just copy and pasted what the woodwinds were doing, the harp might not stand out as much as it's doing here, and it may just kind of be underneath the woodwinds. So it's a little bit of a quieter instrument, so you need that additional velocity of those extra octaves, just to get the listener to pay attention to it a little bit more. So that is what the harp can do in the middle of a section of music. Let's move on to something else. Let's see what else. What else do we have? Oh, okay, let's start at the very beginning of Symphony Number 3, measure 1. And in this case, we have a bunch of brass and woodwinds going from piano all the way to forte. Let's figure out how to get the draw tool going here. So piano to forte, big swell into a kind of like a high tempo allegro thing happening here. That type of thing. And lots of emphasis on rhythm. Bum, bum, ba, bum, 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 ba, da, dum. You know, almost like a Indiana Jones march or something. I don't know. But anyway, we're fading in here, and that's what the harp is actually emphasizing. It's emphasizing this fade from piano to forte, and it's doing that by doing a gliss. So that is the context in which this gliss is happening, and you can see it kind of pulls double duty. There is a woodwind run as well, so it's kind of re-emphasizing that woodwind run. That's what the harp is doing there. Let's see what else the harp can do. On this one, I think it's just emphasizing, not only can it emphasize a woodwind run, it can emphasize a string run as well. So we've got string run for this guy. Maybe we have a woodwind. Yeah, we have some woodwind runs as well. Starting to pick up the pattern here. And let's look at this. This is in 3 Nightly Dances, measure 41, it looks like. And again, some woodwind runs happening. Let's get our draw tool. Working. Woodwind runs happening here. And in this case, this is the big final conclusion to the first dance out of 3. And so we have all our brass, all our strings, all pushing towards a big climax on the first beat of the measure here. And then you'll notice everything starts to fade out after that, and we get down to piano markings, mezzo piano markings, mezzo forte markings, and some melodic information. So we have basically double forte here, fading out is kind of the idea. So big climax, basically climax here. The big climactic finish of this part. So what's the harp doing? The harp is participating in the buildup of the climax, or that short buildup of the climax, with the violins. I don't know why's the violin. Oh, I guess the violin too has to do some arpeggios here, so that maybe it's not participating in the run. But we got our first violins, violas participating in that run. We got a bunch of woodwinds participating. But there's something different here. As the climax hits its big notes here, bum ba bum, bum ba bum. Here it is, bum ba bum, bum ba da. That's our big statement, climactic statement. The harp is actually doing something a little bit different this time. It's emphasizing the climax a little bit different. It's glissing from C, it looks like, all the way down to the C here, and it's inflecting here and going back up to the C and then repeating that process. So we've got bum ba bum da da, and we've got and in our strings, you know, bum 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 bum, that type of thing. So the overall effect is we're just at the climax, we're increasing complexity. And when we orchestrate and we want something to be super exciting, high energy, overwhelming, just a piece where you're right at that climax. How do you spell exciting? I don't know. Sorry, guys. Maybe exciting like this. All right, however it's spelled. Sorry, I'm addicted to Google and texting what fills in your spelling these days. So you're increasing complexity at your climax. So you're doing something that no other instrument is doing. So you're adding, basically adding polyphony. Let's see if I can spell that. Maybe like that. You're adding polyphony to your score just to increase the excitement going on there. And it doesn't really say fade out, like there's no, but I don't know, I think that if it's necessary, the harp's going to know to get a little bit quieter there as the music kind of winds down. So there's a little bit different scenario. And of course, let's see if we can find something else it's doing. Here we go. Here's, we're going from one section into another section, and it's going into a forte section. What was it doing before? I don't know. It looks like somehow it's going from this section here into a new section here. So the harp is just emphasizing that transition between sections and this idea. And I think we'll probably be able to find other similar effects that the harp's going to do. So here's going from one section into another here, where the woodwinds are kind of building it up with kind of a scale type idea going into the main melody here. And we're emphasizing this melody in double forte, so it's a big statement of our main melody. Boom, ba ba bum, boom, bum, ba bum, boom, boom, ba da da, boom, boom, ba. That's this is page 4, so this is probably like our big statement of the melody after we've already played it beforehand in a quieter format or in a quieter context. So we have all this woodwind and maybe even strings, strings building up here, going into the melody, and kind of we have the harp kind of doing arpeggios to kind of almost mimic what our woodwinds are doing. Yeah, that kind of idea. So the harp's emphasizing that. So we're going from this section into this new section, and again, it's emphasizing a big bold statement. It's glissing into boldness. Glissing where no harp has ever glissed before. Actually, glissing where every harp is glissed before, just because we're mimicking all the music written before us for several hundred years of this happening. So we're just recreating what's come before us for the sake of familiarity, familiarity. Same thing here. Let's see what the context is here. Yeah, here's our primary idea. Bum ba ba bum 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 ba bum 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 ba da 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 da. That's our primary idea, and this is kind of the concluding statement of the primary idea. Ba da da ba 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 bum ba da dum. And then our secondary idea is this. Here's our secondary idea. This is our primary idea here. And of course, what do we have? A harp gliss going into that section. So again, the harp is being used to transition between sections. It can be used for climaxes, as we've seen, and it can be even used to wind down climaxes. A lot of times it's used as a doubling on these woodwind runs. So there's some ideas that you guys can replicate for the sake of familiarity, based on what's been happening the last few hundred years in orchestral music, so that you can keep your audience happy. Okay guys, that's the first part of the video. Then I'll meet you back in my studio to show you how to actually program your harp glisses into your sequencer. I'm kind of on the road here. That's how life is these days, but I'll be back at my studio on the weekend to show you guys. All right, we'll see you there in a sec. Okay guys, so we're back in the studio and we're going to construct a gliss on the sequencer. And I think for this one, we're just going to go from a C, kind of low down on the keyboard, and end on a C. So we're just going to do about 3 octaves here. And like I said before, when you're actually constructing your gliss, just listen to the music in your head or have your sequencer going and kind of run your fingers up the keyboard to get a feel for how many notes you should be using or the velocity of the gliss. Also, before we start programming in the sequencer, we got to figure out how many notes we're going to use. For this one, it's pretty obvious. If we're starting on a C and ending on a C, we're going to be doing this over 3 octaves. It's going to be 21 notes. And don't count your last note. Your last note is going to start on another beat or unit at a time. I think for this gliss, we're just going to do it over 1/4 beat, just to keep things simple. But regardless of what you are glissing over or what unit of time you're glissing over, just count all the notes but your very last one, and keep that number in mind when we start programming in the sequencer. Another tip is if you're using partial octaves and you can't really figure it out as easily, you can always just go through and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and go all the way up to your ending note. Okay, let's get the sequencer going here so we can program this in. Okay, like I said, we're just going to do this over 1 beat, so we'll just pick a random beat here. We'll just say beat 4 into the next beat. And for this, you're going to want to pull up your step record tool. And like I said, mine's going to be done with 21 notes, so I have to get the step record ready for 21 notes. Also, make a note in your step record that where you're actually starting from is where you wanted to start from in your sequencer. Sometimes this can be different than this, so always make sure that this is where you want it to be. Make sure you're on the harp track, and like I said, we're going to gliss 21 notes over one quarter note, or one beat. So I'm going to say this is going to be a tuplet, and I'm entering 21 notes in the time of one beat. And it's always good to hit enter after you program your numbers in, because sometimes it doesn't recognize it unless you hit enter afterwards. And let's see what we can do. Actually, let me pull up the harp part so we can actually see what's going on here. There we go. And I think for this gliss, I'm just going to use C, D, E flat, F, G flat, A sharp, and B flat as my notes. And I'm just going to repeat that over 3 octaves. So all I have to do is press those keys into the sequencer now. So let's go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And as you can see, let me, oops, where'd it go? There it is. As you can see, we've got a nice starting point and a nice ending point. The starting point is directly on the beat, and so is the ending point. Now you can always mess with the timing of the inside notes if you want to get super particular, but I don't think anybody's going to notice if you load more notes towards the front or back or whatever you want to do to humanize it. And let's take a listen. Let me grab my pedal here. Let's take a listen to see what we got. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's get our velocity going here. Let's make it nice and neat sounding. So let's go for it here. Okay, that is how to program your gliss into your sequencer.